Welcome to Learn English Speaking. Let's talk stories. Here we bring you amazing stories to improve your English fluency. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more exciting lessons. Let's learn together.
Chapter 1. A Gentleman from La Mancha. In the Spanish village of La Mancha, there lived a gentleman who loved to read. His favorite stories were of knights and their code of chivalry. Full of dragons, magic swords, enchanted forests, and damsels in distress. This gentleman was not a wealthy man, but rather a hidalgo. A hidalgo was a landowner who was richer than a peasant, but poorer than a nobleman. His name was Señor Quijano. Señor Quijano lived modestly with his housekeeper and his young niece. He was a tall, thin man in his 50s. He was a strong and healthy man who went hunting every morning. However, he started to read adventure stories all the time. His best friends, the local priest and the village barber, were worried. Their friend suddenly began spending night and day in his chair, reading adventure books through crazed, bloodshot eyes. Soon he started thinking these stories were true. Finally, he went completely crazy. Waking up in his reading chair one morning, Señor Quijano announced,
"I'm going to become a knight-errant."
"A what?"
asked his concerned niece.
A knight-errant is a righter of wrongs, a friend to the unfortunate, a rescuer of fair maidens, and a killer of dragons.
"But, Uncle,"
she cried,
"there are no dragons in Spain. And who are these maidens who need rescuing?"
The old man went to the attic of his house and found a rusty old suit of armor. He put the suit on and felt ready for action. In a bold voice, he announced,
"Now to my faithful steed."
This steed was really a worn-out nag, but to his delusional eyes it was a valiant warhorse.
I name you Rocinante, Queen of the Hacks, and I will call myself...
He took a moment to think of the perfect name.
Don Quixote. Now I must dedicate my life to a lady.
"Do you know a lady?"
sobbed the man's niece, frightened by his insane ramblings.
All knights know a lady,
the man replied.
When I conquer a giant or capture a villain, I'll parade them in front of her to prove my love and loyalty.
Then he remembered stories he had heard of a beautiful peasant girl from the nearby village of El Toboso. Having lost his grip on reality, he decided that she was a lonely princess.
"What's her name?"
demanded his niece, hoping to bring him to his senses. Quickly, he invented a name.
All of the sweetest ladies are named Dulcinea. Her name is Dulcinea del Toboso, and to her I dedicate my life. Don't try to stop me. I must go."
Then he picked up his sword, a cracked old lance, and a leather shield, and marched out to the stable. A few minutes later, he rode out in search of his first nightly adventure. Don Quixote soon realized that he had not been knighted.
I must find a lord or lady to dub me a knight,
he said.
I don't want to be called a fraud.
All day Don Quixote rode the scorching plain searching for adventure, but nothing happened. By sunset, he and Rocinante were hungry and tired. In the fading light, the armored man saw an inn and rode toward it.
Perhaps we'll find shelter at that castle,
he said to his horse. The inn was of the common shabby type found along the highways of Spain. In front of the inn were two dirty-faced peasant girls who watched in shock as this man in rusty armor approached them.
Good evening, fair maidens,
he said.
I am the knight Don Quixote de la Mancha. Please, summon a trumpeter to announce my arrival.
In his eyes, this old inn was a great castle with tall silver towers. Don Quixote became annoyed when the girls just giggled. But at this moment, a pig handler stepped out of the inn and blew his horn to round up his grunting animals for the night. Don Quixote mistook the sound of the horn for a chorus of pipes and trumpets. Then the innkeeper came to the knight. "If you're looking for a bed for the night, I'm sorry to tell you that we're all full."
"Sire, are you the master of this castle?"
asked Don Quixote politely. Looking at this man in his rusty armor, the innkeeper realized that he was obviously crazy. The innkeeper decided to have some fun with this loon. "All of the royal apartments in my castle are full."
"That's okay,"
replied Don Quixote.
"A good knight has no need for comfort. I'll be happy to sleep on the ground with a rock for a pillow."
"You're a knight, aren't you?" the innkeeper asked mischievously.
"I am an apprentice knight,"
replied Don Quixote.
"I seek a kind lord who will dub me a knight with his sword."
"I see," said the innkeeper. "But I'm busy now, caring for my other guests. I'll be back to you when I get a chance."
"Thank you, my lord,"
replied Don Quixote. After some rest, Don Quixote grew impatient and sent for the innkeeper. When the innkeeper stumbled out, Don Quixote said,
"Lord, I can wait no longer. Please tell me what good deed I must do to earn my knighthood."
The innkeeper said, "If you want me to knight you, stay here and guard my courtyard tonight." With that, he turned and stomped off to the kitchen. Don Quixote picked up his weapons and walked to the middle of the courtyard, next to a water trough. Inside, the innkeeper told his guests about the madman who thought he was a knight in the courtyard. A few hours later, a muleteer approached the trough with his animals.
"Stand back, foolish knight!"
shouted Don Quixote.
"I will defend this magic well to the death."
"But my mules need water!" cried the peasant as he pushed past Don Quixote. Swinging his lance, Don Quixote hit the man on the head and knocked him out.
"I have done my first good deed,"
exclaimed Don Quixote.
"When this man awakes, I must send him to my lady Dulcinea to pay his respects."
Alarmed by the noise, the other muleteers rushed out of the inn and attacked Don Quixote.
"A swarm of evil knights attacks me,"
cried Don Quixote as he blocked their flying stones with his shield. The innkeeper realized that he needed to get rid of this dangerous screwball. "Dear knight," he said to Don Quixote, "forgive these evil knights and put down your weapons. You have proved your courage. I will dub you a knight without delay. Kneel down." Obediently, Don Quixote knelt amid the straw and dung of the yard. "I hereby appoint you to the Order of Righteous Knights," cried the innkeeper, smacking Don Quixote across the back with his own sword. Don Quixote jumped to his feet excitedly.
"My lord, I owe you everything."
Yes, yes," replied the innkeeper. "Now you must go off on your good deed-doing and wrong-righting."
"At once!"
cried Don Quixote, who hurried to the stable, mounted Rocinante, and rode out into the dawn of La Mancha. Shortly after, Don Quixote spotted a group of silk merchants coming toward him on the road.
"Here is an opportunity for gallantry."
Riding in front of the group, he blocked the road.
"Halt, cretins! None shall be allowed to pass without proclaiming that my lady, Dulcinea del Toboso, is the most beautiful maiden in the world."
The traders stopped and looked at each other. It was obvious to them that they were in the presence of a madman. I want to see her first before I can proclaim her beauty. How do we know that she's not just some old sloppy chops? Said the joker of the group.
Sloppy chops?
Screamed Don Quixote.
Prepare to do battle, you impudent knave!
Don Quixote raised his lance and charged the group, but Rocinante was not accustomed to speed and stumbled. Don Quixote was thrown through the air and landed in a ditch with a crash. The merchants went away, laughing loudly. Hours later, a passing farmer heard a whimper. He found Don Quixote in the ditch, covered in mud. The farmer recognized him as Señor Quijano from the village. He hurriedly picked up Don Quixote and carried him home. There the knight was tucked safely into his own bed. Chapter 2. Knight and Squire. For 2 weeks, Don Quixote rested in his house, making everyone think he had regained his sanity. But he had secretly sold some of his land to finance his next adventure. He was also looking for a squire to accompany him. The only man Don Quixote found who would work for him was a fat little farmer named Sancho Panza. He was a total dunce. "This squire job sounds like hard work," said Sancho. "I'd rather be at home with my family, munching on a big plate of pork." Sancho Panza loved wine, food, and afternoon naps more than anything else.
But squires always receive great prizes of gold and land from the knights they serve,
promised Don Quixote.
If you serve me, you'll surely end up as the governor of some rich island.
My own island? Sancho repeated, licking his lips. Okay, I'll grab my bags and saddle up my donkey. Then the two left in the middle of the night without telling anyone. By dawn, the two men were in the middle of a wide plain. Squinting in the glare of the brilliant sun, Don Quixote saw 30 or 40 windmills in the fields before them.
Sancho, fortune is smiling upon us,
he called. Does that mean it's time for breakfast? Replied Sancho.
This is no time for eating, you pig. Look at those giants over there. I'll kill every one of them. Our great service will be remembered for centuries.
What giants? Cried Sancho Panza.
Over there, the ones with the long arms.
But, master, those are windmills.
Don't contradict me,
scolded Don Quixote.
I know an army of giants when I see them.
Don Quixote spurred Rocinante into a gallop and raised his lance.
Giants, prepare to fight,
he shouted. Charging into the nearest tower, he thrust the shaft of his lance into a sweeping sail. The weapon shattered, and the knight was picked up off his horse and tossed into the air. He landed with a great boom, 50 meters away in a large puff of white dust. Trotting over on his donkey, Sancho Panza said, I told you they were windmills.
You fool,
said Don Quixote.
When I charged those giants, an evil wizard flew by on an invisible horse and cast a spell that changed them into windmills to rob me of my glory.
I see, said Sancho, believing every word as he helped his master to his feet.
Don't worry, my squire. I'll find this wizard and destroy him.
The next morning they began traveling again without breakfast, to Sancho's dismay. An hour later they saw a large cloud of dust in the distance.
It must be two bloodthirsty armies in battle,
exclaimed Don Quixote. Then he quickly described both of the armies, including the names of their generals and fiercest knights which he made up. How do we know that this isn't just a trick by those evil wizards?
Can't you hear thousands of marching feet?
Yelled Don Quixote, who raised his broken lance and charged them. They're not soldiers, cried Sancho. It's just a large flock of sheep." The knight began skewering the poor sheep on the end of his lance. As soon as the shepherds saw him killing their animals, they began pelting him with stones. A rock smashed the side of Don Quixote's face and knocked him off Rocinante.
"Those evil wizards!"
cried Don Quixote, spitting out a mouthful of blood and the chips of broken teeth.
"They've done it again!"
In a nearby meadow, the knight and the squire found a place to rest for the night. "I'll have dinner ready in a minute," said Sancho.
"Oh, squire, how can you think of eating in the moment of my greatest despair?"
"There's nothing more important to me than eating," Sancho said, devouring raw onion and salami. "What are you so sad about anyway?" Holding his throbbing head, the knight answered,
"The loss of half my ear and 4 teeth saddens me."
"I'm not surprised. There will be nothing left of you in a week or two. I've never seen a man more miserable. We should call you the Knight of the Long Face. Your chin is almost scraping the ground."
"Yes, my squire, that's an excellent name for such an unhappy knight as myself."
The two realized that they were thirsty. An hour later, they located a stream in the forest. As the sun began to set, they heard a terrible sound coming from within the depths of the forest.
"This is an enchanted forest, ruled by a terrible ogre. I will find and destroy him with my lightning lance. If I'm not back in 3 days, go to my lady Dulcinea and tell her I died valiantly in her honor."
Sancho Panza was afraid to be left alone, so he slipped off his donkey and sneaked under Rocinante's hind legs. There he tied a loop of rope to hold her still. When Don Quixote tried to spur the nag on, she could not move.
"What magic is this?"
boomed Don Quixote.
"My steed is held still."
"Oh, it must be that evil wizard again," lied Sancho. "Perhaps it would be better to destroy the ogre in the morning."
"Yes, I will break this spell in the morning,"
agreed Don Quixote. The two men spent the rest of the night trembling in the forest for fear of the terrible noise coming from down the river. At dawn, Sancho slipped the rope from Rocinante's hind legs. When Don Quixote mounted her, she could walk.
"I'm free!"
exclaimed the knight happily. Then they set off to search for the ogre. But when they found the source of the terrible crashing sound, it wasn't an ogre, but an old water machine, clanking away under the power of a waterfall. Sancho Panza began laughing at Don Quixote's newest folly. "We just spent the night trembling in fear of this," he laughed. The Knight of the Long Face was even more miserable after this failed adventure. But late that afternoon, he saw something that lifted his spirits.
"Look, Sancho, do you see that knight riding toward us?"
"I see a man on a donkey," replied Sancho.
"That knight is Horatio the Brave, and his helmet is the most valuable on earth."
"I think that's a barber's wash basin on his head."
"No, it's a solid gold battle helmet. I will challenge him and win it."
Don Quixote shouted.
"Surrender your helmet, Horatio, or I'll spear you with my lance."
"I have no helmet,"
cried the man.
"I'm just a barber. This brass basin is for my work. I put it on my head because it was raining."
"Do you expect me to believe that?"
scoffed Don Quixote, drawing his sword. Don Quixote snatched the basin from the man and placed it on his head.
"The visor is missing, and someone has tried to melt the gold off, but I shall wear it with pride."
Sancho tried not to giggle at the sight of Don Quixote with the wash basin on his head. Later they came to a line of a dozen men with heavy chains around their necks and hands. 4 soldiers herded them, cursing and lashing them with whips. "Prisoners," said Sancho, "off to row the king's boat,"
I don't believe it.
said Don Quixote.
These unfortunate men are being held against their will. It is my duty to rescue them.
"Master," said Sancho with alarm, "these men are terrible criminals. They must pay for their crimes,"
Move aside!
commanded one of the soldiers.
These men are vulnerable and needy.
Said Don Quixote.
As a knight-errant, I offer them protection.
Ha 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 ha! This crazy old fool is out of his mind.
Laughed the sergeant.
He's got a wash basin on his head. Ha ha!
As the other soldiers laughed, Don Quixote smashed the sergeant over the head with his lance and knocked him unconscious. The other soldiers attacked him, but the convicts attacked them faster. One of the convicts stole the keys from the sergeant's pocket and unlocked the other criminals. The convicts overtook the soldiers easily.
My friends,
cried Don Quixote,
I have given you freedom. All I ask in return is that you go to the village of El Toboso and testify of my courage to my mistress.
He's as crazy as a coconut,
yelled one of the convicts.
Grab him!
The convicts attacked Don Quixote and Sancho Panza and beat them. They robbed their saddlebags and cracked Don Quixote's basin on a rock before running away. Sancho Panza cried, Now we're going to be in big trouble. We'll be wanted men. The Holy Brotherhood police will be after us. Chapter 3. The Giant Killer. To escape from the Holy Brotherhood, Don Quixote and Sancho Panza fled into the mountains. They traveled high up to a desolate, lonely country of the Sierra Moreno range.
All great men go through a period of despair when they question everything they believe in,
Don Quixote said. He turned to his hungry squire.
I am sending you to El Toboso with a message of my love for Dulcinea. She must tell me whether she can return my love or not. I will stay here and whip myself until you return.
All Sancho could think about was the feast he was going to eat as soon as he got back to a village.
Ride quickly, Sancho Panza,
commanded Don Quixote as he took off his armor. Then he smashed himself in the chest with a large rock and began to beat himself on the back with a tree branch. Riding away from the strange scene, Sancho called to his master, Don't overdo it, or there'll be nothing left of you before I can return. Halfway to the village, Sancho stopped at an inn for the feast he had been waiting for. As he approached the door after his big meal, he came face to face with Don Quixote's old friends, the priest and the barber.
Hey, you work for our troubled friend, Señor Quijano, don't you?
The priest said to Sancho. It's true, I am his squire.
How can you believe his nonsense? Don't you realize he has lost his mind?
There have been some strange things happening, replied Sancho.
Where is he now?
Demanded the barber. He's in the mountains, waiting for me to return with an answer from his mistress, the lady Dulcinea del Toboso.
Her answer to what?
Asked the priest. Something about love, answered Sancho.
Take us to him. We have to bring him back to the village with us,
said the priest. I will, but I warn you he'll never come back with you, said the barber.
I have a plan. I'll be back in a minute.
Shortly after, the barber came back with 2 dresses from the innkeeper's wife. The 3 traveled back to the mountains. That night, they camped and discussed the details of their plan. In the morning, Sancho went off to find Don Quixote and tell him about the ladies in need of help. Meanwhile, the priest and the barber put on the dresses and began cooking bacon over the fire for their breakfast. As they ate and talked, they saw a beautiful woman passing by.
"We must show ourselves at once,"
said the priest. They stepped out to meet her. The girl screamed when she saw them and tried to run away.
"Do not fear us,"
shouted the priest.
"I am a man of God."
If you're a priest, why are you wearing that dress?
She questioned.
"It's a long story,"
he replied.
"By the way, why are you wandering these hills?"
asked the barber. The beautiful young girl then told her sad story.
My name is Dorothea. I am the daughter of a wealthy farmer. I was to be married to the Duke's son, Ferdinando, but he left me for another woman. I was so broken-hearted that I came here to cry away the rest of my days.
Then the priest had an idea.
Perhaps a truly beautiful lady such as yourself could convince Don Quixote to come back to our village rather than an old priest and barber dressed like women.
Dorothea agreed to their plan and put on one of the dresses. When Sancho returned, he led them to Don Quixote, who was still lashing himself with the branch of an old olive tree. Immediately, Dorothea fell to her knees.
Please, brave knight, a terrible giant is attacking my father's kingdom. You must help us.
Of course I will help you. Sancho, prepare my horse. We leave at once. I cannot refuse a princess in distress.
Later the group arrived at the inn where Sancho had first met the barber and the priest. The innkeeper ran out to greet them and was met by the priest. The priest handed him 10 gold pieces and said,
"My friend in the iron suit is mad. He thinks he's a knight and this is a castle. I ask you only to play along for the night and let us stay until morning."
"Yes, my wife heard something about a lunatic roaming the valley," said the innkeeper. "I heard the Holy Brotherhood is searching for him. You may stay, but your crazy friend will have to stay in the hayloft where I keep my wine, so he won't bother anyone." The priest and barber agreed. Long past midnight, after everyone had gone to bed, the priest awoke to the loud sound of gushing liquid, as if a river had burst into the inn. Suddenly, Sancho Panza stumbled into the room, covered in blood. "My master is fighting a giant upstairs. It's a bloodbath up there." The priest helped him up and tasted some of the redness on his fingers.
"Sancho, this isn't blood, you simpleton. It's wine."
Sprinting up the stairs, the priest shuddered when he saw what had happened. There was Don Quixote, swinging his sword and stabbing the huge pigskin sacks full of wine hung from the ceiling.
Aha!
cried Don Quixote as the wine splashed out over him, blinding his eyes.
Another fatal wound. Soon there will be no more blood left in your body. Victory will be mine.
The innkeeper raced upstairs, screaming, "Oh no, you're a madman! My best wine is all gone. My wife has sent for the Holy Brotherhood. You'll pay for all of this damage." As the officers of the Holy Brotherhood arrived to arrest Don Quixote, the priest came and took one of the officers aside for a moment. He explained that Don Quixote was crazy and needed to be taken home for medical attention. The priest also told the officer to have his men put some chalk on their faces. Soon after, Dorothea came to Don Quixote.
Brave knight, you have slain the giant and saved my father's kingdom. I thank you.
It was my pleasure, dear princess,
said Don Quixote. Suddenly, the knight was surrounded by 8 ghostly figures with white faces. One of them stepped forward and said,
"We are demons sent by the evil wizard to take you back to your village. Get into this cage."
Don Quixote tried to fight, but the 8 men seized him and locked him into the cage. Don Quixote struggled to break free from the cage until his strength was gone. Then he fell asleep.
Chapter 5. Reunion with a Friend.
I asked Andrew Fairservice to accompany me into Scotland because I did not know the country. We met at 3 in the morning because we didn't want to wake the Osbaldistone family. On a Saturday evening, after a long ride, we arrived in Glasgow, the principal town in the west of Scotland. I wanted to start looking for Owen immediately, but Andrew said,
"You cannot do anything until the church service is over."
So I decided to go to the Cathedral of Glasgow, a solid and massive example of Gothic architecture. While all the people were silent and listening to the sermon, a voice from behind me whispered distinctly in my ear,
"You are in danger in this city. At 12, precisely."
I turned round, but there was no one there. I spent the rest of the day at the inn, reflecting on what I should do. In the end, I decided to go to the appointment on the bridge. I waited on the bridge in the dark. I was very apprehensive. What was going to happen? Then the clock struck midnight. And suddenly a stranger appeared near me and said,
"Mr. Osbaldistone, follow me."
I hesitated and replied, "Can't you give me your information here?"
"You must receive it from your eyes, not from my tongue," he said. "You must follow me, or remain in ignorance."
So I obeyed, and was surprised when the man led me to Glasgow prison. The prison guardian, a Highlander called Dougal, seemed happy to see my companion. He took us upstairs to a cell where a prisoner was sitting dejected in the corner. It was Mr. Owen. He recognized me and exclaimed,
"What? You are here too? Oh, Mr. Frank, your company is ruined and now you're in a Scottish prison. God help us."
I assured him that I was not a prisoner and asked him to explain what had happened. What was he doing in Glasgow prison? He told me that my father had 2 correspondents for his business in Scotland, the house of McVitie McFinn and Company, and the baillie, Mr. Nicol Jarvie. They transacted a great deal of business for the London firm, and Owen had gone to see them when he arrived in the city.
"I immediately contacted McVitie and McFinn,"
said Owen.
"They had always professed themselves obliged and devoted to Mr. Osbaldistone, so I openly revealed the present difficulties of the house caused by the absence of your father and the disappearance of Rashleigh. I asked for counsel and financial assistance regarding the next payments, but when they discovered they had large credits with Osbaldistone and Tresham, they refused to help me. They had me arrested and sent to prison as a debtor instead."
Just then we were interrupted by a loud knocking on the prison door. A few minutes later, Baillie Jarvie himself came in and spoke to Owen, asking to see his papers. He examined them with great attention, then said,
"You owe money to several people in Glasgow, but you cannot pay your debts if you're in prison. I will act as your guarantor, and they will let you go free."
Baillie Jarvie took the lamp and scrutinized the other people in the room.
"Ah? Eh? Oh, my conscience, it's impossible, and yet— No. You robber, you devil that you are. Can this be you, Robin?"
exclaimed the baillie.
"That is so,"
was my guide's laconic answer. Mr. Jarvie also wanted to know who I was, and then asked me,
"Young man, how will you find the £5,000 to pay your father's bills in 3 days?"
I didn't know what to say. Then suddenly I remembered Diana's packet. I opened the seal, and a letter dropped onto the floor at Mr. Jarvie's feet. After examining the name on the envelope, he gave it to Robin. I realized then that my mysterious guide was in fact Mr. Campbell himself. I recognized his deep voice, his severe face, and his Scottish accent. Mr. Campbell read the letter, then instructed Owen to remain in Glasgow. He told me Bailey Jarvie and I should go to his Highland home in the Glens. The next day I went to the Baileys' home for lunch and found Owen there. The honest man was depressed after his stay in the prison, but Mr. Jarvie's kind and friendly interest in my father's affairs consoled him. I asked the Bailey to tell me something about Robert Campbell.
He is a distant cousin of mine. Many people have been cruel to him. He is a Highland cattle merchant that wears the tartan when he's in the hills and trousers when he's in Glasgow,
explained the magistrate. Then he started to examine some business documents with Owen. As I could not help them, Mr. Jarvie suggested going out for a walk. I could return later for lunch.